Hello YouTubers, Troz here, playing some Kerbal Space Program. It's been quite a while since I played this game. I think 2 expansions have come out in the meantime, but I'm not really here for them. I watch another YouTuber called NerdCubed. He's pretty popular, you may know of him. And he recently did a video where he launched a spaceship of 3 parts and tried to get it to the moon. Well, I should say it's not exactly 3 parts, it's just that it can't be taller than these 3 parts. So you have to build out wide ways. And he just managed to get it into orbit around Kerbal, but he did not get it to the moon. I'm going to get it to the moon, and I'm going to return it. To do that, I've added some parachutes, I've added some solar panels, and some communication devices, and a light, and a ladder, which... let me make sure that is on both sides and not just the one side that it was on. But he wound up, at the end of the video, if you watched it, just stacking a lot of boosters. And that didn't really work. So here is my plan. It looks like I've stacked a few boosters, but they're in a particular setup so that I can get the most efficiency out of them. First, let's see, we have 2 of these, what are they called? It's under engines, twin bores, and they'll, well, I won't say they'll do my main lifting, but they're the workhorses for the launch. Even though as I have it set up, every rocket will be running at launch. Every engine, let's say. These outer twin bores, though, are set to feed into the inner ones on each. There's actually 2 different... The vertical ones are different than the horizontal ones. You'll see why in a minute. But the outer ones here, these and these on both sides, feed into this inner one. That means this inner one is using fuel from the outer one and this outer tank as they're directly connected, so that when these run out of fuel, I can drop them, and this tank here is still full of fuel. So that is more efficient. No real rockets do this. The plumbing between stages is, in the real world, just too complex. But in Kerbal Space Program, that is something that can be done. It used to be known as asparagus staging, but I'm not sure if that's the correct term anymore. Anyway, once this one is done, we can drop it, and the middle is fueled by these 4 tanks. But these 2 tanks here, you can see, fill into this one, and then this one fills into that one. That means we empty this tank first, and this tank along with it, and when they're done, we can drop them. You know, so we just have 2 tanks, and with these 2 tanks, that is what we land on the moon. You can see I have some landing legs on this tank as well as in the center here. We do whatever we need to do on the moon, we take back off, we head back to Kerbal, and at that point we can drop this tank and splash down here. We have 4 parachutes, we got some solar panels, like I said, we got some lights, we have SAS thrusters, but the only SAS we're going to take with us is basically what comes with this, which I think is 100 monopropellant. I do right now have the BD Armory mod in, because that's what I was playing with the last time I played, but obviously I don't have any weapons on this or anything. So, seeing that we're nearing the 5-minute mark, let's launch this and see how we do. Should just be a moment here. There we go. And as you can see, the height of everything lines up with the height of the rocket, and nothing extends lower. In fact, I could probably even move these down a hair, but they do seem to line up, at least in my view. I will say, I consider this a legal rocket as per the challenge. Not that it was a challenge, but turn on SAS, full throttle, and 3, 2, 1. Let's turn down that audio a bit. We're gonna start turning over, and let's throttle back a bit, because we don't want to go too fast when we're too low in the atmosphere. We want to turn maybe to about there. And you don't really want to get too much above 300 when you're lower than 10,000 or in the lower atmosphere, as that's about the speed of sound, and you start having lots of drag effects if you're faster than the speed of sound. But now that we're higher than 10,000, the speed of sound has increased, so it's okay that we're going a bit faster now. Probably want to turn over to maybe 45 at this point. That should be good. Let's check our map. And we're going decently. We want to get this up to about 75,000 or 75 kilometers. Oh, I should have dropped tanks long ago. I guess when I was in the map, I did hear the sound change a little, and that was the engines running out. There we go. That should be pretty good for now. Let's plan our maneuver. We want to circularize, and that is way more than needed. That should be about good. So we got a 44-second burn time in about a minute and 15 seconds, which means we want to start burning when there's about 22 seconds to go. You can see these are different stages here. There's the nice space music. Okay, we're about to start. And we're going to need to stage here in a couple of seconds. And we're going to need to stage again, because now these are going to run out of fuel. And we're about good to go. And you can see as the screen shifted, indicating our achieving orbit. 80 by 75. Pretty good for what we need. Now, unfortunately, because of the time I launched, we're just past where we would need to leave to go to the moon. Normally, you want to launch somewhere, if you're in a low orbit, just when you see the moon rise, if you launch about then. And that's just because of the distance that Kerbin's moon is. That's just how it works out. So let's try this. And oh, there we have an encounter. And with that encounter, we'll be orbiting the other way around the moon. That's probably okay, but let's see if we... That should... Now just... Yeah, if we went a little more, if we take a look... Well, it's hard to see. And in reality, that may actually have us hitting the moon. There we go. Get a little lower periapsis than that. If I click on it, that'll stay up. And something about 100 or so, maybe 80. 50 sounds good. It probably uses a little less fuel. Now we have a burn in 25 minutes. So let's, well, let's turn this on. And let's extend a solar panel, because you can see we're using a little electric charge now that the engines are off to keep our stability. But with the solar panels extended, those generate more than enough power. Let's aim at the target, or the maneuver, and let's fast forward to our maneuver. 15 minutes away now. 10 or so. Now, in reality, the solar panels should have been using, or should not have been producing electric charge when we're in the shadow, but, you know, we're only using like 5 charge a minute, and, you know, that was only a 24 minute, so we would have had plenty of charge even, you know, behind Kerbin. So we are about a minute away. We got a 31-second burn, so we're going to start at about 16 seconds to go. And we should actually see the moon rising here shortly, if we planned everything correctly. I mean, even if it doesn't, as soon as we start the burn, it will rise. We know that this maneuver will get us there. About 8 seconds to go. And let's start. You can see this coming on out. It's going to start accelerating quicker and quicker. Alright, I stopped it there. I'm just going to turn the engine on slightly. Now this is something you can do in Kerbal Space Program. In real life, rocket engines can't go this low. That is theoretically just about perfect. And as you can see, yeah, Kerbin has, or the moon has ribbons over the edge of Kerbin while we were doing that maneuver. So now it's basically getting out there. We're gonna just warp. It's gonna be 5 hours or so. See, we've left Kerbin behind, and we're approaching the moon. Alright, looks like we weren't exactly, like, we were a little low. I should have checked our orbital plane, but that's okay. If I warp there, it's just a few minutes ahead. Let's hit slash now. Yeah, so we're going to be coming on what the professionals call a kind of wonky orbit, but that is okay. 42, it was our actual altitude. Let's see if we can correct our wonky orbit a bit. And we need to slow down to get into an orbit. And let's see if we go like that a bit. Kind of want to land on this meteor here. Meteor. Impact crater. Probably caused by a meteor of some sort. What is we? Oh, that is. Well, that's gonna be good. So that is our plan. Kind of correct our wonky orbit somewhat, and at least get over this nice crater. Let's aim at the maneuver target, and that's a almost 500 meter per second burn. According to our computer, we have about 3,600 meters per second, so we should have plenty of fuel for this. And we got our burn in about an hour and a half, so let's time warp. Be about a 14-second burn. We are behind the moon at this point. You see we're I guess that's per second. It was 0.7. Yeah, there. At times it is point. Yeah, those lights don't really help much. Where is the moon? I'm looking at the wrong way around. I'm assuming that is the moon. Let's look at the map, since looking at the spaceship isn't really doing us any good. Alright, we're gonna start burning at about 7 seconds. Actually, let's do now, because I want to stop a little bit early and then do a tiny thrust for the, final part of it. So I'm just gonna turn on the engine slightly, and we'll get that down to about, say, 3 kilometers. Okay. Now, I want to land somewhere over here. That's probably still pretty high. But to do that, I mean, our orbital speed is 495 meters per second. I'm not sure what it will be over here, but we basically have to do our orbital speed so that we're coming straight down. Something like that, which this says almost 550. And yes, as we're going to be dropping here, we're going to be picking up speed. So if we set that up, and you see we're now in the sun. We've come around the edge, but we're not quite... we're not over the sunny part of the moon yet. We're still kind of over the shadow part, but we're in the sun because of our altitude. Alright, so this is going to be a 13-second burn in a little over 10 or 11 minutes. So let's warp. And basically we want to... I mean, that looks pretty good. We want to be over a flat part. If I do anti-normal right now, which I kind of want to move that down. No, I want normal, not anti-normal. And then... well, nope, not what I wanted. Somehow I messed that up. Let's just do retrograde. And something like that. And thrust. I want to do stability just because when that gets close to 0... well... alright, that's going to put us in a nice flat area. I took too much time and we wound up drifting from where I wanted. Kind of the problem is we're going to be moving at an angle, and I kind of want to be coming straight down. That's because that's how I land. If you're Scott Manley or somebody, you can get your speed to 0 right as you get to the ground. Although, that shouldn't be too much of an angle. We will be coming directly down. I just don't like having much horizontal velocity. We are quite high, though. If you were Scott Manley or somebody, you would have been much closer to the ground, doing something much closer to a suicide burn, which is much more efficient. I wasted some fuel, well, definitely just kind of like turning around, but in basically almost coming to a stop and then falling straight down, where you can... well, I'll try landing like this without coming to a stop. This should be nice and flat. Put our landing legs out. Got our lights on. Not that we need them, but they'll help estimate our distance to the ground. Actually, you don't need to do that anymore. There's this button. You can see it says we're 6,000 from sea level, but we're really 3,500 from the ground. Here's our shadow. When we get down to about 1,000, I want to slow... well, let's start slowing down now. I'm going to turn on RCS. Let's keep our speed in check. And there we are. We made it to the ground. And we have 2,000 meters per second of fuel left. Let's do a nice little EVA here. Let's extend the ladder. Can you... Oh, well... You almost made it. Let's actually can we turn on your lights. How do we get you to turn? Oh, maybe it's because I had the it's because I had the RCS on. We'll plant the flag. You must be only this tall. Let's take a surface sample. Let's take an EVA report. And let's get back in the vehicle. Oop. That's right, it's not space. Well, space is jump, but once you're in the air, grab, you need to use shift. Hopefully you'll be able to get in the hatch from here. Yes, we can. And look at that, I didn't even extend the antenna. We're not going to transmit data, but... Okay! Not sure why we're in an airplane, but... We need to get back. So... let's... lift off. Everything looks good, so we're just going to throttle up. And kind of like Kerbal, you want to go east. In fact, you don't even need to get high up. You just need to get moving quickly to the east. And that's good for now. That will give us, well, quite a few minutes. At that point, we just want to first get in orbit. But since the moon is traveling that way and we'll be traveling relatively backwards, we can just... well... let's get in orbit and we'll do it the efficient way, even though we have plenty of fuel at this point. It won't take all of that to get back. So let's warp to the maneuver. Alright. Yeah, everything looks pretty good. Just get a little closer. And full throttle. And cut. That is in orbit. Something about here, I'm guessing. Because you want that going as straight back as possible. We're at a little bit of angle, so that causes this to be at an angle, but that doesn't matter that much. We want to come into about 40 kilometers up in the atmosphere. So something about that. And yeah, so we theoretically can burn 275 meters per second, and we'll be back in the atmosphere. And that's in 29 minutes. Just to verify, our periapsis is over 10 kilometers up. So, while we'll lower down a little bit, we're not going to have any chance of impacting the surface. So let's warp. The highest heights are only about 2,000-ish, if I remember correctly. It's been a while. Okay, so let's aim at the maneuver. And this is also going to be a 4-second-ish burn, but I'm gonna do most of this from the map view, so that we can make sure we stop it right where we want it. Alright, we got about 15 seconds before we start. Three, 2, 1, let's go. And let's turn that off, turn that on. So that is 550 right now. And well, that's a little much, but I mean, we still have 1,000 meters per second of fuel left. I mean, with 1,000 meters, if we didn't go to Kerbal, we could at least orbit Minmus, the other moon, and then come back. We probably don't have enough now, but all right. Let us. Well, let's warp there, which was in an hour and a half. So that is in 5 hours, which is basically a day. And we're gonna like warp to wherever here is. So we're gonna head back into Kerbal. And we'll do a little maneuver to raise our altitude before we hit the atmosphere, or our periapsis, I should say. Because if you go in too quick, you're just going to get more heat. Alright, 130. So let's add the maneuver here, and we're just going to 37... 38, that should be good. Aim at the maneuver. The node is like right here. It's actually not, that much. It's 70 some odd meters per second. So just tap it a little. You can see our periapsis, because we did it late, it's a little, and 40 is about where I want. So let's end that maneuver. Let us face retrograde, and we're gonna hit the atmosphere at 70, so let us prepare. We'll close the solar panels. We'll bring in the landing gear, which I should have done before. Just hitting the atmosphere. And let's get rid of these fuel tanks that are still, you know, more than a tenth full. But it's now time to say goodbye to them. Just as we started heating up. So the big thing we want to see is our apoapsis drop. Oh, I left the one antenna open. Just by chance, that one went a little higher, and I was going to say survived, but luckily our engines are designed to take heat. And actually it looks like we're heading back up. Well, not heading back up. Now we are. If by chance I did this completely right, because I did not plan this at all, we should actually slow enough to start coming down again before we leave the atmosphere. If not, we're going to go around again for another orbit. But you can see our apoapsis has significantly dropped. We just needed to drop quite a bit further to about 70 or less. Otherwise, we'll be headed back into orbit. If this did work out right, and I'll probably know in the next minute if it did or not, this is actually what the Apollo astronauts did, is kind of went through the atmosphere a bit, started rising back up, and at that point is when they slowed enough to not leave again. But I'm going to say we didn't slow enough, and we are going to leave again. But that is completely okay in this case, because we're going to be back in an hour and 6 minutes back inside the atmosphere. We'll still in the atmosphere for a bit. We're not really being slowed at this point, though, because the atmosphere is getting thinner and thinner. You know, above 70, it's not existent. Above 60, it's basically non-existent. I probably did want to come down to maybe 35 instead of 40 kilometers, and that would have done it. But I also didn't want to have happen to me what happened to those fuel tanks, so I think we did the safe thing. So let's come back, say warp there. You can see our power is dropping significantly. Oh, and we're back in the atmosphere. Let's turn off SAS. I kind of wanted to stop before you hit the atmosphere and open the solar panel. but this will be okay. We still have power, and at this point I don't think we really need power to land. Our engine is heavier, so it will stay that way even without the SAS on. And you know, if this drops below 100,000 kilometers, drops below 100 kilometers, that's 700 kilometers. That's a point, not a comma. You know, when it does that, I definitely know we're then landing. It's looking pretty good. No overheating. I mean, we do have these heating little bars, but no showing overheat here on the engine. We're nearing periapsis, and this is nearing 100 kilometers. So we may start going up a little bit, but it won't be for long. Alright, we are slightly going up, but you can see our periapsis, our apoapsis, is inside the atmosphere, so we have left orbit. And in fact, there's the game verifying that. I mean, when I said it, we technically hadn't, but we weren't leaving the atmosphere, so. We're probably actually going to land on the land over here. I don't think we're going to stop in time to hit the water. Probably would have been preferable to hit the water, but don't really have control over that at this point. It's just a matter of waiting for our speed to bleed off, turn into heat. And as we drop lower into the atmosphere, that will occur quicker and quicker. We can stay away from these mountainous areas, because landing on the side of the mountain would not be good. What is this? That's really bad, but I think we're gonna pass over this mountain. It's showing us landing near these, but as we slow down, that's gonna come way in. Hopefully here-ish, we'll see. Yeah, we're bleeding off speed pretty decently now. actually may wind up over here, depending on how quickly we slow down at this point. Now, while we won't be here, we're not over there. Hopefully we won't be on too steep of a location. I think we might land in this area. Actually, yeah, we can kind of choose where we land a bit, depending on where we deploy our parachutes, although we're coming mostly straight down now, so we're gonna be right about here. I'm gonna deploy those parachutes now. They're gonna help us slow down until we're about 1 kilometer up. And we're gonna be a bit unbalanced, but let's put out those landing legs. Few trees in the area. There. Well, that's all I can see. Hopefully we don't fall over with the landing legs. Well, that's about as perfect as a fall over as you could like, or you could want. There we go. One size only this tall rocket made it to the moon and back. How do we can recover? I guess we head back to the Space Center and then ask to recover. I think that is going to be about it. Yeah, I got it. And let's recover. And yeah, that's gonna do it. I'm gonna say thanks for watching, and see you guys next time.